Okay, this lady light up 2 candles and then cover one of them and light the fire gone, and then water goes into the beaker. You will see the water level goes up and then stop there. Okay, then after that, she seems sleeping. And then, yep, she's covering the candle, and then the fire gone, and water level goes up. And then see, when you compare these two water levels, can you explain why the water level different in these two beakers? Explaining. Maybe some of you think uh, because air, because when the candle light, um, they use air inside the beaker, so the air gone, so that volume, uh, that amount of air gonna filled with water. That's what you thought, maybe, right? But my question is why the water level is different. This one level, the water level is this much, and then this is higher. Why this water level is different? If you're thinking air pressure, then inside the air, I'm sorry, the oxygen, amount of oxygen all the time same, right? So in this speaker, the amount of oxygen is the same. So once the oxygen gone, and that amount of oxygen uh, gonna filled with water, then the water level need to be same. But why the water level is different? Here's your misconception. It's not about oxygen. It's about air pressure. Because think about, she covered this candle a little later. That means in this area the water is warmer, right? And then when she cover it, then the candle gonna the fire gonna gone, right? So as the fire gone, then the temperature gonna drop, suddenly drop. So because of the temperature, the air is gonna contract, right? So the air is gonna contract in here, then that much amount of water gonna goes inside this beaker. This one, there's no big difference in temperature, air temperature. She just cover right away, and then um, the candle fire gone. So that amount, um, of course, there's a little changes in air temperature, right? So that inside the air is contract, but that is a small amount. That's why water goes in a little, but this one big difference in air, so the water goes inside. Okay, so you also have some misconception possibly. So when you show this activity to your students, they also gonna disturbed. Why it happened? I thought it's because of oxygen, but actually it's not about oxygen. It's about temperature. It's about um, temperature. Okay. So bring this kind of activity at the beginning of your science lesson. Then students gonna explore more. Students gonna have more uh, uh, disturbance, discrepant. Okay, then they can learn more. Here's Piaget's model for mental function. Students gonna assimilate when they have something, then they gonna put things in their folder. They're gonna categorize things and put that into their brain folder. That's assimilation because they already have those folders in their brain. But then they're gonna find something different. Then they start to adjust their brain. Oh, there's just something different. There's just something different folder I need to have. So they develop one new folder and put new concepts into that new folder. That's accommodation. Okay. And then once things all organized, then they build their own knowledge. That's organization. So these are the Piaget's model for mental functioning, for learning. So this way, students gonna learn. Based on this Piaget model, learning cycle invented. The assimilation is exploration. You need to have an exploration step when where students can assimilate, and accommodation. During accommodation, further accommodation, you need to introduce new term. Then students gonna make a new folder in their brain, and then once they make that folder, then you need to have another application case. You need to have some activity where students gonna apply what they learn. Then their learning gonna formally organized. Okay, so based on Piaget's model, learning cycle developed, and they changed the step name explore in term introduction and concept application. So when you have these steps, then your students gonna have learning very natural way. And when you see this learning cycle, you need to make sure the term introduction is gonna be after exploration. That is very important. That's the way you can do inquiry. Students gonna explore more first, and then you guide them to introduce some new term, and then students gonna have another chance to apply. Okay, so this is very important to frame for you to develop your lesson. So now today our topic is how do you plan your science lesson? How are you gonna plan? You might have a good idea already, right? Of course, you're gonna follow that learning cycle, students' learning cycle. So based on learning cycle, you need to develop your lesson. Of course, exploration, term introduction, and then application. Here's Lawson's learning cycle. Of course, exploration, term introduction, concept, application. You need to have these stages. Um, For exploration, teacher need to ask questions, show demonstration, or help students experiments. Then students need to watch teacher's demonstration or performance, and um, students themselves perform hands-on lab activity. Of course, they need to observe, collect data analysis. They can do at the beginning with a little demonstration or little activity. So they start to disturb and then explore. Okay, so they start watch and then explore. And then the second stage is term introductions. So once the students find out some concepts, then teacher need to introduce new scientific term or a concept. Then students need to build their concept using scientific terms. Okay, so students also need to build that concept in their brain. And then last stage, concept application. teacher need to facilitate concept by helping students discussion, application, and a little more further experiments. Of course, students also need to have discussion, application, and experiment for applying what they found and what they built uh, after that term introduction. Okay, so based on this, National Science Teacher Association emphasizing 5E learning cycle. There are many um, different learning cycle, but in National Science Education Association, they emphasize 5Es. Of course, the basic frame based on exploration, term introduction, application. But then they divide more, like engage. During engage, a teacher can ask a question or some event or discrepant event you can bring. So students start to get engaged in your lesson. And then students explore. Teacher need to plan and conduct investigation to gather evidence to answer a question. So at the beginning, you bring some questions, or you bring some photos, you bring some magic show or some discrepant event. Students start to curious about what's going on, right? And then you bring some investigation, some activities. So students start to explore, explain. Once they done with their exploration, then students start to discuss what's going on. And also, teachers need to introduce new scientific term during explanation. And then elaboration is application. That means once the students develop new concept, new finding, then you need to bring another activity where students can apply what they learn. So that's elaboration. And then all these steps need to be evaluated. Of course, the evaluation can be the last step, but the evaluation can assess all steps: engage, explore, explain, elaboration. So you can know how much your students understand. All right. So this 5 is very important to put in your science lesson. Then automatically, naturally, your students gonna start to learn, start to build knowledge. Okay? This is a format that you can use for your science lesson. You can put chapter, topic, objectives, materials, and staging, and you can think about in advance what you need to do as a teacher and what students need to do. So you can think about both sides, yourself and students, and you can assign times. And if you want to have a more memos and etc., you can put it in here. Okay. Um, but you can use this format, but I made this simple lesson format. Um, I'm of course you need to have time to think about student side, but I want you to think about first yourself. So mostly this parts, of course, you can put yourself and also teacher side and student side in here. I put grade level, topic question, objectives, materials, and 5 is here, engage. So for the engage, you need to develop questions. Question is very important. Remember when we talk about inquiry-based teaching method, you need to develop questions first based on Bloom's taxonomy, knowledge comprehension, analysis, application, and synthesis and evaluation, right? So based on 5E, you need to develop and also put questions for each E steps. Okay. Uh, I also put that sample lesson on Blackboard so you can find out it. So it looks